Cuenta con más de 24 años de experiencia en retail. Ha trabajado en diferentes partes del mundo y para grandes empresas como Disney y Dairy Farm International. En IKEA se ha desempeñado en diferentes funciones. Por ejemplo, ha sido gestor de proyectos en lugares como Beijing y Taiwán. Actualmente se enfrenta con el desafío de abrir IKEA en México, liderando el proyecto para crecer en Latinoamérica. El Retail Country Manager y Managing Director de IKEA México, Malcom Pruys, en Milenio Negocios. Muy buenas noches, bienvenidos a Milenio Negocios, este programa que hacemos Ilana Sod y yo, hoy con un invitado muy especial. Gracias por estar con nosotros, Malcom Pruys, Retail Country Manager and Managing Director of IKEA México. And we're going to have this conversation in English. So IKEA opened its doors in Mexico mid-COVID crisis. Mm-hmm. What have you learned from other places in the world that has been applied in terms of how to sell retail during a pandemic?
Yeah, I think that the first thing was is to make sure that we continue to move forward and forge ahead despite the challenges that existed in the market. I think maybe one of the biggest learnings is to have a more secure supply chain. Although, again, I think that that's a challenge. I think you could have the best laid plans, but still be quite challenged.
Let's talk a little bit about your plans in Mexico. Let's start in Mexico City and then Mexico if you want. How much do you want to grow in terms of stores, in terms of sales?
Yeah, well, I mean, Mexico City, obviously a huge market for us. So we're constantly looking at how to penetrate the market. It's also a very congested market. There's not a lot of places left for big blue boxes, sure. You could say. So we think we can probably sustain 5 to 6 outlets in various formats, shapes and sizes over the coming years. I think we're learning from Oceania that Mexican customers really actually like the idea of being able to take things home straight away rather than having them home delivered or having to come back to the store. So I think we continue to look for ways that we can have a more traditional format in Mexico City. And then, of course, the rest of the country, we are desperate to be in all the big cities. We will open Puebla next year. As we know, that's, again, a smaller format store, but we think that will work quite well. And then, of course, we are looking very closely in different markets like Guadalajara and Monterrey, and then many of the other cities that have, really any city that has 1 million people or more, we think we can have a physical touch point complemented by an online offer.
IKEA has chosen 10 Mexican entrepreneurs to mentor them. And yeah. Why is this important for the brand? How come this is being done, start right away as you begin?
Yeah, it's in connection with another part of IKEA where we take social entrepreneurship pretty seriously. All 10 of these kind of businesses are related to sustainability. So that is a really, really big part of our, if you want to say, future DNA, the way we produce, the supplies that we use. So we think that it's a really good opportunity to help prospective local Mexican businesses to get a start.
To start in Mexico, I understand you visited 120 homes to learn about Mexican home needs and therefore offer solutions. What did you learn about Mexican consumer habits compared to those from other countries? And how much did that change your business model?
Yeah, I think the first thing we realized was there's more that Mexico has in common with other markets than differences, you could say. So most of us have similar challenges in our homes, no matter where we live, and storage is that big need. So Mexico, we certainly see that storage is one of the biggest problems. So enough space to put everything that we have. I would say the thing we learned was how important the bedroom is in the Mexican home. That's a little bit different from some of our other markets where kind of the kitchen and the living room really are the heart of the home, but the bedroom is a really important safe space. And that's maybe because particularly Mexican children, they tend to leave the nest later. They stay at home longer. So that means that their only real private space is their bedroom, and that Mexicans have a special pride around the home. No matter what kind of home you have, you're very proud of your home today.
You have worked at IKEA since you were 28 years old, and I know you say you learned everything in the businesses. University studies are being questioned today more than ever. In your experience, what is the best advice you can give to a 20-year-old wondering what to do today?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to make sure that whatever you do, you're doing something that you love, not that perhaps somebody else around you loves. And then I think that learning takes many forms. So whatever you do, you have to be open to input, to be able to learn and develop, challenge yourself, and never assume that everything you know is the only way to do something. I think that's been my biggest learning, is that there's always somebody else around you that maybe knows a little bit more or that you can lean on.
And when you sit at a table with people with formal education, with those profiles, what do you bring to that table?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to learn by doing, I would say, and we don't all learn in the same way. So the theory that's provided through formal education is not necessarily always that clean when you go out into the real world. Yeah, and I think that's particularly true when you manage and lead people. A lot of the theory of how you should lead or how you should manage or how people will react to certain situations, real life is much more different because you have a lot more than just work in your life. Yeah, there's personal circumstances, there's financial circumstances, there's difficulties with space, time, and we all learn in a different way. So I think that's been the biggest thing that I can bring to the table, is real life experience.
I have another question that has to do with the business model. For the first time, your recruitment process was 100% digital, which seems really interesting. I know the pandemic maybe had something to do with it. What was the result, and will you replicate this model in other Mexican cities or even countries?
Yeah, I think it certainly was different. It's not how we would normally do our mass recruiting drive for a store. Normally we'd have a big job fair and we'd get as many people to come as possible, and we put everyone through different stages, particularly at the start through hoping there's a connection to our culture and values, so who we are as a brand and how that resonates with an individual. I think we've learned with having to do that online is that you can get very similar results. There's an efficiency, you could say, that comes with doing it digitally as well. And I think future-wise, I suppose it'll be a mix. I suppose we'll have a hybrid in the future, but I do know that other IKEA markets have looked to us and have used a similar model where they've been in lockdown and opening new businesses as well.
IKEA is one of the top most valuable brands in the world. According to your experience and what you've been able to do and live in IKEA, what are the three things that have allowed it to get there?
Generally, or just in Mexico?
No, generally, and maybe in Mexico in particular.
Yeah, I think the first thing is to make sure you understand your market super well. Stand by your culture and values. That's a really important thing. Will always be IKEA in Mexico, for example, not Mexican IKEA. We have to hold on to our roots and our culture and values. It doesn't mean that you don't respect the environment that you're in, but make sure you don't lose sight of your roots and origins and where you've started. And then the third thing is to always make sure, certainly the people in your organisation, that there's an element of fun and enjoyment, even when life is a bit tough.
I'm going to go with two more questions to finish this interview. One of them is the store in Oceania in Mexico has a new concept, which consists of solar panels and water recollection. How much of this reflects in your own furniture and products in general in terms of being green?
Yeah, hugely, you could say. I think sustainability is really front and center in the business, both as you mentioned, when we're building new stores or refitting stores, but also when it comes to product development and range development. You know, we have big movements through our long-term sustainability agenda to not use virgin plastic anymore, for example, to ban that almost entirely from our restaurant business, for example. But then when it comes to range, making sure that all of our product comes from sustainable and renewable resources. So we have an ambition by 2030 to really pretty much produce the range from either a renewable or reusable source today. So I think that's an amazing ambition for a business like ours today. So new materials or new ways of recycling, upcycling. We talk about circularity a lot. So we have a lot of programs now around being able to sell your furniture back to IKEA. We don't have that in Mexico yet. We need to get IKEA furniture into a few more homes before we start buying it back from you, I think. But, lots of ways to give IKEA furniture a second, third or fourth life as well. So it's a big part of our long-term agenda today.
And I have one last question that might or would have been fine to make it on the beginning of this interview, but I'm going to ask it at the last part of our interview. What took you so long, or why took you so long to open IKEA in Mexico? Because I remember maybe 10 years ago, people started talking. There were so many rumors of IKEA opening in Mexico. So why did it took you so long?
I think the first studies actually were, you're right, they were about 10 or 12 years ago. So the first studies of the market were done back then, and then I know that there were a lot of rumours about IKEA coming. Then there was the global financial crisis, of course, that came. So you could say the brand itself made sure that we were doing okay in the markets we were in, and then making sure that the conditions were right. Yeah, look, I suppose in some ways you could say we could have been here a lot earlier, but I think we needed to make sure that when we came, that both Mexico and IKEA were in a position to be able to do the right thing by each other. And that's just how it's been the last 4 years.
Thank you very much, Malcom, for being in the show. Y muchas gracias también a nuestra audiencia por habernos acompañado. Buenas noches.